Hey, what's up, everybody? I just got back from Alaska. I was doing a fun Street Fighter V event up there, and I'm exhausted. I won't lie to you guys. I'm super tired. So today, instead of streaming, I figured I would start on something that I've been thinking about for a while, which is doing some more kind of videos like this where I have a topic or, you know, something interesting that I just want to talk about and spend some time with and putting it up on YouTube. I've also been thinking about doing a podcast lately, and I don't know if it's going to be solo or with guests that are always there or like a rotating cast of people or what it is, but I've been trying to figure out what I want to do for that. And so I've kind of had this creative itch to make more content lately and try to help out Magic Moss, who does all of the YouTube stuff, by the way. He's incredible. The thumbnails, all the uploads from my match analysis, all the Twitch stuff. He is incredible, and he is way too good at his job. So everybody give some love to that guy for being fantastic. You wouldn't have all the great content you see on the YouTube channel. Well, you know, it's pretty good without him. It's like 90% him and 10% me. But today I wanted to do a topic that I've been thinking about for a while. It's sort of like a wrapped up version of a few things, and one of the questions I get asked the most about commentary is, how do I prepare for commentary? You know, how do you get ready for an event as a commentator? And since I'm an analytical commentator, I'm someone who does a lot of analysis. People ask me that because, you know, it takes a lot of studying, it takes a lot of preparation, and I wanted to answer this question, but also add an additional kind of topic, which is how I prepared for Combo Breaker, CEO, and EVO, where I did the Dragon Ball FighterZ commentary for the finals of all three. And so I wanted to just do like a little breakdown of sort of my thought process when I'm doing these things, my inspirations, where my background is for some stuff. There are skills that I use in Dragon Ball that are brought from other fighting games or other things that I've commentated before, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So when doing a game like Dragon Ball, when the game comes out, I watched a lot of Dragon Ball, and there was a lot of like figuring out what I liked about the commentary, what I disliked about the commentary, what I wanted to do better or change about my commentary for this game in particular. So I have like a long list of things that I wrote down as like, you know, this is what I should focus on. This should be improved or changed from what other people are doing. And I'm just going to talk about two of those things today and then kind of go over the general stuff that I do for everything and then tie that into the events that I did. And the first thing that I wrote down, the very first thing I realized about Dragon Ball commentary in general, and there's a few reasons for this, is keep my analysis short. It's the very first thing I ever wrote down when listening, because there's a few reasons. One, Dragon Ball is a very new game. There's a lot of players that play this game that are never played a fighting game before, or they're from all kinds of different games and backgrounds and stuff. So I wanted to keep the analysis short and sweet and very to the point, because I knew that a lot of people would not want really like elongated, like super in-depth analysis, and also that oftentimes that doesn't really have a place in a game like Dragon Ball. And the main, more important reason why I wanted to keep the analysis short is that Dragon Ball has some of the best hype commentators that the FGC has commentating it, right? We have so many good commentators in fighting games, but the hype commentary for Dragon Ball is incredible. And when I watched it for like the first 2 or 3 months, I was like, these guys are too good. And you don't want to take a lot of time away from them, right? You want to let them do what they're good at. You want to let these big moments happen, let them get excited, let them get you guys excited, make you guys laugh, make you guys enjoy the game. And so my role as like an analytical commentator is not to step on too many toes, but to also kind of give some context about what's happening, right? Which is kind of a general thing, but in particular for Dragon Ball, condense the analysis. So there's a few ways that I did this. You know, the thing about commentary is that it's cumulative. I think I said that word correctly. And one of the big skills that I have from Killer Instinct is taking a lot of little micro decisions that happen, because KI is a game that's extremely fast. And while you're comboing someone, there's like a lot of back and forth between the players, which is very rare for a fighting game, right? It's kind of like DI and Smash, where you have to make constant reads about where someone's going to DI, like what direction are they going to DI in, are they going to DI out, like what are they reading from you as a player? It's the same thing in KI with combo breakers and counter breaking and what combo choice you do and stuff like that. So we'll come back to that in a little bit, but that skill set, you know, commentating all these different games really comes back around into improving your own commentary. And, you know, as an example of something that I watched was the Mikado League that Guilty Gear had. If you guys aren't familiar with this, late last year, right, they were doing a league in the Mikado arcade in Japan for Guilty Gear. And it was just this super sick, like, kind of exhibitional league that they had with some of the strongest players from all over Japan. and it was in Mikado Arcade with Majin Obama doing solo English commentary. He's got a handheld mic. He's standing in this busy arcade. It's hot in there. I've been there. I know what it's like. It's hot in there. There is smoke. Everybody's smoking on the arcade cabinets, right? Like, it's just stuffy and gross in there and amazing. And he's doing this, he has this handheld mic. He's doing commentary on this English thing. It's 3 a.m. in the US and I'm watching it and I can't look away because what he does is these elongated monologues that are sort of a mix of a sermon and like a crazy introduction for these players where he gets on the mic and he's like, this is Nage Faust. He's from East Japan. These are his strengths. These are his weaknesses. This is how he thinks and operates as a human being. This is why you should care about him or want him to lose. And this is his opponent, Omito from West Japan. Like, he just has this long list of things that he is going to, off the top of his head, just breaking down these players and really like discussing why you as the player should like, or why you as the viewer should care about them, what you should know about them, what makes them interesting, their strengths and weaknesses. It's incredible. Now, he's doing this in an environment where he's commentating alone on a handheld mic, and he has all the room in the world to do what he wants to do, right? He doesn't have to worry about how much time he takes up because he's alone, right? He's the one that gets to determine when he talks and what he talks about. And so when I heard this, and I thought about Dragon Ball commentary very early on, I knew that I wanted to take inspiration from this. And I knew that there were certain things about it that I really wanted to focus on. And like I said, Dragon Ball is a game where lots of new players are coming in from all over the place. So giving context about where the players are from and their strengths and weaknesses is so important because many people might not be familiar with some of the players that play Dragon Ball. So what I tried to take from this long 5-minute monologue that he was doing, this sermon where he was just dropping all this information, is condense it into 2 to 3 sentences about why this player is good, what they're good at, and what you should know about them as a player, because that's my job as the person who's dropping the analysis. I'm not going to do the hype stuff. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff. I'm just going to deliver this information. So I took this idea and condensed it and turned it into something that I could deliver, because I obviously can't do what he is doing. Deliver it in my own way and in a way that makes sense for the context of the game I'm doing. So you heard this a lot in Combo Breaker, where I was describing certain players in 2 to 3 sentences and giving you like a breakdown of why they're so good and what's important about them. Because you hear people say a lot, man, Sonic Fox is such a good player. But they don't discuss why. The why is so important in fighting games. And so you heard me saying, this is a sentence that you've heard a lot on commentary now, is that Sonic Fox is the king in the scramble. He's the best in the scramble in the world, right? You've also heard me talk about how he's so good at rock, paper, scissors, RPS situations, right? About both stealing away your turn and also maximizing the moments where it's his turn. And also about how incredible his offense is. Like, his intuition is world class, and his ability to smell your fear as an opponent is just unbelievable. And you heard me talk about a lot about Goichi at Combo Breaker, about how his defense is incredible. He's one of the few players in Dragon Ball who can rely on their defense to reliably save them, which is unbelievable in a game like Dragon Ball. About how he is risk averse, right? He often plays around defensive or neutral assists. He doesn't want to go in first. He doesn't want to make mistakes. And mistakes are the bane of his existence. He plays so careful, so afraid of making any mistake. He tries to like keep his gameplay perfect. And when that slips away from him is when he has the most trouble. So I had these 2 to 3 sentences where I was condensing all that information and delivering that, but before the matches and going into the matches and sometimes interstitially in the match. And that was one of the big things that I took from like the Obama breakdown into my own commentary in Dragon Ball, because I knew I had to keep the analysis short, right? Let the hype commentator breathe and get this information. So keep it short. Give a lot of information and background to players or spectators who are new to Dragon Ball fighters or fighting games in general, but also still get across the why of fighting games and why these players are so good. What about them is so unique compared to other players who are in the top 8 with them, right? And it goes back to what I talked about with KI. In KI, these combo decisions are happening, and one of the things I picked up about that was how to sneak my analysis into my play-by-play, and how to keep, a moment that happens a lot in Dragon Balls. I'm doing play-by-play. I'm doing analysis in the play-by-play, discussing what was so great. A big moment happens, and the energy has to go from me doing this great analysis play-by-play to boom. And that's when I'm boom, 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 doing the analysis and the play-by-play. I go like this, I back off, and the hype commentator just fucking sings. They just explode with this beautiful like moment of like, this is crazy, look at what's happening. And then I come back in, I'm like, oh my god, that was awesome, and here's why it was awesome, back to the level where we are at before, right? Just carry it up and then down. So that's kind of like the way I think about my Dragon Ball commentary, the way I want the flow of the commentary to be, right? And all of that is notes and information I had under keep the analysis short. A simple idea, but a lot of little things that add up that make that important. Another idea that I wanted to focus on, and is kind of something I talked about a little already, is give player backgrounds and explain who these players are and what they've taken from other fighting games, because I knew that Dragon Ball is probably the best example I can think of all different fighting game communities from all over the place merging onto one game and having so many different play styles, so many different like stylistic differences that people have from just innately playing whatever game they play. You look at a top 8 for this game, you have Melee players, Smash 4 players, NRS, DOA / Skullgirls players, like Guilty Gear, Persona, BlazBlue, Melty Blood, KOF, Tekken. You have players from all over the place, right? And so I wanted to give a lot of player background. And when I did this, I didn't want to just say this player plays this game. What I wanted to do is I went back and watched them playing their main games and tried to figure out, they may be a Melee player, but what are their strengths as a Melee player that like leads into Dragon Ball, right? Like a lot of like, you know, one of the things that's common in Melee is talk about tech chasing, talk about execution being incredible. Like you look at a player like Leffen, you look at him trying to be like super optimal and always make the correct decision, right? He doesn't want to always like have super sloppy play. And when you look at his Dragon Ball commentary or Dragon Ball gameplay, and like the things that he dislikes and likes about the game are very similar, right? Which is why it's important to know things like that about him. It's important to look at Reynolds and see, like, you watch his KO when he wins EVO and KOF, he has that disrespectful KOF style. He has like that. He's the first person I saw walk up in someone's face and then air dash. Like do little air dash pressure in Dragon Ball to bait people. And that's very similar to doing short hop pressure in King of Fighters, right? Like those moments where you can pick up stuff from other games, like study other, like these players in their games, take it back to Dragon Ball Fighters and give some like kind of background, give some sort of like emphasis on their skill sets they're carrying over. Makes the players from those communities like really happy. They're just like, wow, look at this. This is just like X thing from that game. Makes Dragon Ball awesome. B, it makes the people who watch Dragon Ball think like, maybe KOF is super sick. I should probably think about that. Or Melee or Street Fighter or whatever they're taking the skills are. And gives you also some context of where these skill sets come. It gives you like that sort of like, this game is so cool because you can learn different skills and it transfers into it. This is a game where there's a diverse community that plays it, and because of that, all these different skills come from different places. Some people have the same skills that they learned in different ways, which is what's incredible about a game like Dragon Ball, and something that I really wanted to highlight and hyper focus on. So I studied a lot of different games actually to improve my Dragon Ball commentary and just get better at describing these moments where these players are happening. I even bring it up sometimes. I talk about the short hop pressure with KOF with Reynolds. I talk about like there's moments where Leffen reads an instant air dash. Like he's going to do instant air dash to try to bait something. And he just 2H's it like preemptively. You call it like up smash out of shield, right? Like little moments like that are just like funny kind of like examples where you can be like, you know, I can point back to a different game. And that's what's great about those moments. And now I need a drink. Talk about the next topic, which is just general studying. And I wrote down a lot of the things I do in my general studying of games. And I think a lot of people think about two things when they think about general studying. They think about playing the game, they think about watching the game. And those are very important things. But obviously, like I've talked about so far, watching different games, listening to different commentary, knowing the backgrounds of the players that play is just as important. And so some of the general studying I did, you know, on a timeline from Combo Breaker to CEO to EVO, is very interesting, and I think that a lot of people might like how this kind of went. So before Combo Breaker, I knew that Goichi and Sonic Fox would be a big story. They had already played a bunch of different exhibitions, and I knew that I needed to focus on these two players. So two of the things that I did. One is I played both of their teams for a week and a half each, so that I knew what it felt like to play Cell Kid Buu Gotenks or Cell Bardock Vegeta. And I knew what it felt like, not only like finding their win conditions, finding what's good about the team, finding the weaknesses or the holes in the team, but also just like what does it feel like when Sonic Fox's team loses Kid Boom? Like, what does Cell Gotenks feel like? What does Gotenks Cell feel like? That's an important thing to know on commentary, because you can talk about how the win conditions change. You can talk about how, like, maybe if both of them lose one character, one team might actually have an advantage because it changes the core of the team much more than the other team, right? Those are important things to know that you might not know if you don't play the game a lot, if you're not somebody who's experienced at playing games at like a higher level, or if you just watch them play, you might not feel it or see it in the gameplay as much. Post Combo Breaker, one thing that I started looking at was players outside the US, because I realized at that point I was extremely comfortable with the common players from Japan, Europe, and especially the US. But I needed to focus on many of the strong Japanese players who I expected would be at CEO and EVO. And I started studying a lot for CEO for that. And I knew that I was going to do CEO and Summit of Power. And so I was like looking at all these Japanese streams. I was watching Red Bull, the Tokyo Sphere in Japan that happens. They're fighting Tuesdays. I was watching the Cyclops Osaka weeklies. I was catching the archives and stuff. I was watching individual streams. I was studying players like Aqua and Kubo and Cho and guys like that, trying to figure them out. And it didn't end up mattering for Summit of Power or CEO very much, which I think is okay as an analytical commentator, because you still learn new ideas. You still listen to new commentary. You still find out new things about characters or unorthodox teams or players. But what's great about that is that it ended up mattering at EVO when guys like Aqua were tearing it up against really strong players. Puts a guy like Hook Gang God out of the tournament, or in losers. I don't remember which, actually. I wasn't commentating that match, but I saw it, and I was like, my preparation was important for a moment like this, right? Even though it didn't end up mattering at the time, there are still things that I tried to take away from it so that it wasn't a waste of time or effort. And then when it came back to a moment like EVO, there it was, right? So sometimes it's okay that if you miss the mark, if you study the wrong player or the wrong team or the wrong strategy or idea, if it comes back later in the future, that's great. But even if it doesn't, you still try to learn something from it. And that's what was really great about it, is that it did end up coming back to matter at an event like EVO. In particular, I tried to study outside the US because I was so familiar, and so are most people, right, familiar with US players. Experimenting with new characters and teams is something I do often. Every time a DLC character comes out for any game that I play them. And I try to be proficient with basically the entire cast for every game that I commentate, right? That's just like a general rule, is to try to be familiar with almost every character, if not every character. But a big one, and one that I kind of want to end this on, is asking questions is so important as a commentator who does analysis. And I think a lot of commentators who do analytical commentary, they try to be a bit of a know-it-all about it. But that cannot be someone who does analysis. You have to be someone who's willing to accept that you'll never know everything. It's impossible to know everything about a game, especially a game like a fighting game when so much of it is psychological and so much of it is about the thought processes and the way players play. And B, that at an event, when I see a strong player, or not even, it necessarily doesn't have to be a strong player, a strong mind, someone who's really like good at watching a game like this, I want to talk to them. I want to ask them questions about other players and characters and teams and strategies. And you talk about talk with other commentators, players, really good minds, tech monsters. You try to ask them questions and pick their brains, because there are alternate perspectives and ideas. And even the way they explain things can give you new ideas or give you like a new perspective that you've never thought of and you never would have thought of without being willing to accept that you don't know everything and you should ask questions, right? You should be willing to ask other people, what do you think about that? Like, even if you know the answer in your heart, in your own mind or your own head, you're like, I'm going to ask them what they think about this matchup. Or maybe even pick a side they'll disagree with, just so that you can hear their thoughts or their ideas. So I have to give a special thanks to all the players and all the other commentators and all the other really strong minds and tech monsters that I talk to and ask questions to, because they're the people who give me alternate perspectives in these moments, right? They're the people that give you different ideas that you can then think about, like chew through, counterpoint, and then come back with a new perspective and bring that to an EVO top 8 and talk about a new topic in a different way that you wouldn't have without discussing it with someone else, right? And that's the kind of things that I was trying to be open to when preparing for events like Combo Breaker and CEO and EVO. I knew that I had to keep the analysis short. I knew that I had to have a broad perspective on player base because there's talented players from all over the world. I knew that it was important for me to know where these players come from, the skill sets they carried over from other games, why that matters here, and to appeal to all the different games that watch and are interested in Dragon Ball FighterZ. And I knew that the game was new. and that there were so many players that play a lot of fighting games that didn't really understand it or know about it, and that there's lots of people that have never played fighting games before Dragon Ball or before this year or last year that needed a simple but fast, digestible analysis that was important to the scene and the community. And that's what I tried to deliver at those 3 tournaments, and also Summit of Power. So that's really what I focused on when it came to Dragon Ball. And I'm very happy with how it came out, because the little things can clue me into how I did. Stuff like, you know, saying Sonic Fox is the king of the scramble. You hear that everywhere now. You hear all kinds of players and commentators and even people in chat rooms and comments saying that about Sonic Fox now, because they've heard it once and they recognize, like, yeah, that makes sense. This is what that's the thing that was missing when people talked about when Sonic Fox was good, that needed to be said, right? And I try to do that. I don't always, you know, do it right. Sometimes you make mistakes, or sometimes you want to adjust how you say it, or realize that something else is more prevalent. But like little things like that, when I read like the comments about the match, and instead of being like, wow, Sonic Fox is sick, someone's like, you know what was really key to this match is this. Like, seeing people discuss things more in depth lets me know that I did my job as an analytical commentator, and lets me know that I studied and my studying was worth it. So that's sort of as brief as I could be about my studying, kind of my thought process when looking through and getting prepared for an event, and doing finals, you know, like doing like world-class level players, like how to prepare for something like that at an event like EVO. So yeah, I wanted to tie in the question to how do you prepare for commentary, and my topic of talking about Combo Breaker CEO and EVO all into one. So I know it was a lot, but this is kind of the stuff that I think of outside of just my day-to-day match analysis, watching footage, playing fighting games. There's a lot that goes into preparation. So yeah, that's about it. It's my first topic that I wanted to talk, and it's something that I think about every day. So I figured that would be a good place to start. Let me know if there's other topics you guys are interested in. Let me know if you'd like this kind of video. If you hate it, that's fine too. Give me some feedback down below. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll be back with some more streams soon, and you guys have a lovely day.